Tina. Tina, you'll have to unmute your phone.
It looks like Tina might have, oh, here she is back again. Okay.
Tricky fingers did that for me. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So first of all, I want to say that we have some really interesting, besides Bruce Grayson, we have other wonderful speakers coming up. Like, for example, in May, we have Ned Matina from California, and he's very, very active in the NDE groups all over the country. So we're excited about that. When he said yes, I was excited. All right. So regarding Donna, oh my goodness, Donna. I learned to love Donna right after we met a few years ago. I don't even remember what year it was. Do you, Donna? No. She came into a breakfast holistic meeting, and we were drawn to each other right away, and she started telling me things that she thought that I was going to be shocked about, and I just told her, welcome to my life. And ever since, we've been really connected to each other, and so she's been here for different events at my house and my center here. So I don't want to take away from her presenting her story. So I would like for Donna to begin. Okay, Donna? Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Gordon. I am a retired cantor who served a local congregation here in the greater Hartford area. And I have to, first of all, I want to take a moment and thank Tina and Jack and all of you for allowing me to tell my story here tonight, because this is the first time that I've ever told it in public. I've only spoken about it, in to friends here and there, etc. But this is the first time that I'm actually coming out with the story. And so I thank you for being a nice, safe, and supportive environment for me to do this. And I just want to say that although my story does not include a near-death experience, as all of you have experienced, I just want to tell you how courageous I think you all are, and how wonderful it is to have a group like this for you to be able to share your stories with each other and find strength through each other. So thank you again for having me come and speak with you tonight. So when I was born into an Episcopal family, and I don't ever remember a time that I did not feel that I walked with God. I always felt God's presence. I always felt that I believed in God. I remember going to church every Sunday and in first grade singing my lungs out, just being really happy to be there and to sing. And I really enjoyed that a lot. And so as I got older, though, I started to have, little doubts here and there. And the first one was to the divinity of Jesus, but that was my thing. And so then when I met my husband, Max, in college, I was introduced to Judaism, and I felt like I was home. So what happened was I got married, and I raised two Jewish children, and started to work in a synagogue here in West Hartford, Newington area. And then I became a cantor. It just seemed, everything seemed to seamlessly flow into becoming a cantor. I was teaching religious school, music, then I became teaching bar and bat mitzvah kids, and then I decided to go into and have some full work and learning in a seminary type of situation where I learned to become an ordained cantor, and I was hired by my synagogue for that. I loved what I did. I worked with children. I taught music in the religious school. I taught Hebrew. I did services. My responsibility as clergy was to chant the prayers. I worked with my rabbinical colleague very closely, and we did a great job together. But then about 10 years ago, I began to have doubts. For some reason, I began to doubt that God existed. I became very, very depressed because how can I do my job? How can I do my job? How can I work for God if I don't exist? It was very troubling to me. How can this happen to me? I'm a cantor. How can this happen to me? And so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I begged God, or what I hoped was still God, for an answer. Will you please tell me what's going on? And so one weekend, while I believe I had a Sunday off from teaching religious school, my son had invited me to go to a psychic fair, to just spend the day with him. He was living with his girlfriend out of the house now and in his own apartment. And so I just said, sure, all right, let's go spend the day together. But as I got there, I didn't even know what psychic fairs were. I didn't even know what they were. I was totally clueless to, I know Tina's smiling right now, but I was totally clueless to like what Tina does, what mediums do, what energy healing. Never even heard of it in my life. And so as we got to the place, I was about to open the door to go in, and I just felt like I had this message in my head that said, if you step over this doorway, life will not be the same. So what did I do? I went through the door. So my son and I signed up for a meeting with a psychic for about 20 minutes. So when it was our time to go in, I went in and I sat down, and apparently none of my ancestors wanted to speak with me that day. So she took out her tarot cards. And so she took out the cards and she put them out, and then she flipped over the top card. She looked at the card and she pointed to the card and she goes, so what kind of psychic are you? And I said, what? What are you talking about? I'm a cantor. I don't know about psychics. I said, what is this card? She says, it's the psychic card. And then again, she tapped on the card and she goes, so what kind of psychic are you? And she sat back in her chair as though it was a little hostile in a way. It was as if I was a psychic and I was testing her. That's the only thing I could get out of it. Like, how dare you come into are you testing me or something? And I said, look, my son was with me, and he laughed. He goes, look, my mom's not a psychic. She's a cantor. She goes, I know what cantors do. So what kind of psychic are you? And I said, I'm not a psychic. She said, that card only comes up if you're psychic. And I said, really, I'm not psychic. And she said, you may not think so now, but you'll find out. And as she continued to talk to me about other things in the reading, I noticed that what I now know as my heart chakra began to just vibrate out of my chest. It just vibrated and vibrated and vibrated. It just felt like it was coming out of my body. And it felt like that for a good 2 to 3 hours after the session. It just wouldn't stop. Just wouldn't stop. I could breathe and I could talk, but it just wouldn't stop. And I was wondering, like, what the heck is happening to me? What is going on? And so I went home and I continued with, and I thought it was kind of an interesting thing. I just kind of like blew it off, just thinking, well, this is kind of like a weird, chalk up a weird experience in my life. I mean, this is kind of, actually, my son and I were kind of laughing at it. It was kind of really funny. And then a couple of weeks later, I remember sitting in my family room where I am now and working on the computer. And all of a sudden I saw out of the corner of my eye, something dark just scurry across the floor. And I looked quick, nothing. And then about 5 minutes later, something on the other side. Look quick, couldn't see anything. And then the next day, I felt like a shadow went over to the side of me, and I could never catch it. And then again. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was happening at all. And then within a few days of that, I started to see orbs flying through walls in my house. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is happening to me? What is going on? And to me, the orbs look like silver light that sometimes had different colors wrapped around the outside of them. That's what I saw. And then there was a time where my son and I were sitting in the family room, the one that had come with me to the psychic. And we were watching TV, and I noticed this dark, like two sticks together like this, up in the corner of the room, and it just hit me right in the face, knocking my glasses off. And I said, "Whoa, what was that?" And so I figured that something was going on, and I was starting to see paranormal things happening in my life. So I did what I always do. I decided to read on it, get a book on it, and start reading about psychics and trying to find out, is this normal? Is this what people see? Is this why is this happening to me? And so read a book on being psychic, etc. And it was very eye-opening to me. I didn't know what was happening to me, and this kind of clarified a little bit. I learned about energy, how to protect yourself, etc. And it was eye-opening. So as I was reading the book, and I had learned quite a bit from it, and I learned about meditation that I had never heard about or done before. And so then I remember this was a pivotal moment in this. I just remember feeling during this time of seeing all of these paranormal things happening, I remember feeling like, am I going crazy? Why is this happening to me? Am I really losing it? I don't know how many of you have ever felt that before, but I was really wondering if I was having a psychotic breakdown. And I prayed, and I kept praying. Is there a God? Are you here? Are you around me? And so one night I remember, and I kept thinking to myself, is this real? And one night I remember going up to bed, and I think my husband was away at the time. And I remember going up the stairs. I was alone in the house, and all of a sudden I got this feeling of nausea. It was fast. It was quick. It was it was the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. And I said, what is going on? And then I heard in my head a message that said, demon, demon, demon. And I said, oh God, this can't be happening to me. And so I ran upstairs and cleaned up real quick, still feeling like I was being hit. And I jumped into bed and I turned out the light and I began to use some of the protection, energy protection that I had learned in the book. And for this particular one, I had learned about mirror shields. And so I prayed and I called out to God, please, save me. And as I was praying, I put a mirror shield on myself and on my house. And as the last mirror was coming down on my house and it fell, I heard a pop and a bright light came into my room. I could see, with the blankets over my head, I could see the insides of my eyelids. I could see it was as bright as if you were staring into the sun with your eyes closed. When you stare in the sun with your eyes closed, the back of your eyelids is very bright red, right? And so it popped, and I felt this intense energy and light, and it lasted for a good 20 seconds. And then all of a sudden I heard it go as it faded. And I heard a voice in my head that said, you're okay now. You can go to sleep. And I was off to sleep. I was fine. And so I woke up the next morning. I felt great and I was elated. I felt like I had gotten the answer from God that I needed, that he was there, that they were there, or whatever pronoun you want to give to God, or the divine was there. And the divine was with me all along, and the divine would protect me no matter what, which was a very comforting thought, but it still didn't stop the paranormal things from coming. It was just the first beginning part of my journey through all of this. Shortly after, I remember going to lunch at a nearby restaurant with a good friend of mine. And as we were sitting there, I was staring above the cash register area at this blank wall, and the wall began to kind of like become like gelatin, and you could see something twisting in the wall, and then it twisted back and it became wall again, regular wall. And I go, whoa, what was that? There's just too many things that were happening all at once. And so I decided that I was definitely not crazy, and that I needed to, number one, probably see a therapist just in case, and also to reach out to people in the area to know that I wasn't alone in this, and that other people experienced this whole thing. And all this time, I felt like I was under like a spiritual attack, like things would like I was being hit by different spiritual things, physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc. Let me give you an example. So like one night I was sitting and reading, and I just looked up quickly, and I felt like there was this force coming at me and grabbed onto my third eye. So there's different things like that, and I managed to get it away. I felt like they were just a lot of different tests going on to me at the time. So what happened next was a congregant came up to me, and she, out of the blue, showed me this book that her psychologist in the area had written on different chakras. And so I said, "Oh, this is a great book." She said, would you like to use it? And I can give you her name." And I'm like, "Well, she's a mind reader. How does she know that I was thinking about going to see a psychologist?" And so so I went to this psychologist, and she gave me all kinds of psychological tests. I wasn't depressed. I was sane. I was not insane, etc. So I felt very reassured about that. So things started happening again after that with I found Tina's group. Tina's Thursday night group. I think it was the breakfast group first. And so I went to one of the breakfast groups in Granby, and I met Tina there. And Tina was the greeter, I guess. She kind of, she likes to greet people. And I can't tell Tina how thankful I was that I met with her. And she told me about her Thursday night group, meditation group. And so that was very comforting. I went to the group, and I met other people that were in this. I felt like I was home. I can't describe the feeling of feeling like you're home, like I had been away for a long time. And so I went to different groups like that. And then I began to learn Reiki. And I learned Reiki with Cheryl Case out of A Hand in Healing. And I figured that most people in energy, etc., knew Reiki. But even before I took Reiki, I found that when I was reading different books on energy, I could feel exactly what they were talking about. It was easy to raise energy up from the floor. It was easy to raise energy down into the body. It was easy to feel things in the body with my hands. And so Reiki was just another way of enhancing that and giving me some different tools to combat what was happening. So once I learned Reiki, which was about 7 months into it, I took my first Reiki class. Things started to settle down, because Reiki tends to have a very protective, has a very protective force to it when you're attuned to Reiki. So some of the attacking that I was getting spiritually was taken care of. I would still see orbs once in a while, and I would still have things happen to me, but not as much of the attack type of thing. One thing I learned is that when someone awakens to energy, when they first awaken to energy, it's like a light goes on in the energetic universe, and it attracts all kinds. It's like moths to the flame. It attracts all kinds of beings and spiritual things, just because you're new. Who are you going to pick? You're going to pick the light, or you're going to pick the dark? Are you a good witch, or are you a bad witch? You know, that kind of thing. So basically, it's there's a lot of not so hot negative energy out there too, and you can attract that as well as positive energy. So you've always got to keep your energy positive and light filled. So so one of the things that this psychic book had said about energy, and to increase your energy and to help your force field, so to speak, was to take Qigong. And so I searched Qigong and in the Google internet, and I found the Google Qigong classes at the Wu Healing Center in West Hartford. And it was right down the street from me. So I said, okay, I'll go in and I'll check it out. I loved it. I started taking Qigong lessons with Dr. Wu, and then I would take some of his workshops. And during one of the workshops, I remember he had us all sit in a circle, and he held out his hand, and he had us hold out our hands, and he had us close our eyes, and he was going to do something in his hand, and we were to try to feel what was going on in his hand. And I remember feeling like something was swirling, like turning in my hand. And so he said, when you feel it, mimic it in your hand. And so I took my hand and I could feel it. So I started to do this, doing a circle in my hand. And he said, okay, open your eyes. And I was like one of the only ones doing what he had done. I felt like what he was doing in his hand, he was doing it right on my hand. So I caught his attention a little bit because I was having a lot of, I could feel a lot of energy. I could feel where it was going. I could feel it in the body. And so he asked me if I wanted to intern with him. So I interned with him for a couple of years. Mind you, I was still working at the synagogue at this time. But I felt a greater awareness of God, and I put myself right back into my work, which was nice. I felt that God was real. God was wonderful. And I began to see, when I read the Torah, the Old Testament to Christians, that I could see all of the places where energy, light, the divine, the universe, all of those things were in there. It was a different meaning it was a different reading of the text for me. So so I started to work with Dr. Wu, and I also, in my own health, about 2 months after I had opened up to energy, I had discovered that I have an inner ear issue. And so every once in a while I would get vertigo from that. And so over the years it got slightly worse. And so by the time I left, retired from my synagogue, it was more due to the fact that I was losing my hearing in my left ear. It was not because I didn't like what I was doing at the time. So I worked with Dr. Wu. I learned all about energy meridians. I could feel them in my body. I could feel the points. I could feel the acupressure points. I could feel the acupressure points. I could feel the energy flow in the meridians. I could kind of even see where in the body my hands would next have to go to work on people. So at the end of my 2-year internship, I was supposed to work 100 hours on different clients for free to get my certification. And so I started working on people. And I remember one time when I worked on people, a hawk flew. I had my eyes closed while I'm working on them, doing all of the points. And in my third eye, a hawk flew into the room and stood on the back of this person and began to pull, in my mind, began to pull out worms out of his side that I was working on. So I was working on something else, but in my mind, I'm watching what this bird is doing. I was, first of all, amazed that there was a bird in my mind working on somebody. I had no idea what that was. And so it was pulling these things out of this guy. And I said, you know, I don't know if this means anything to you, but in my third eye, I'm having like this vision of this hawk coming in and pulling things out of your side. And he goes, oh, that's probably my power animal pulling leeches out of my back, because at one point I was a soldier for a king, and I was injured in my back. And so the leeches were used to clean out the wound, etc. And I was like, wow, you know, I never even heard of a power animal before. So he was talking about that and what that was. And so all day, this hawk stayed there, and in my room. It would either walk on the back of people, or it would be up on the armoire, sleeping, you know, with the wing over its head, just sleeping. And then every once in a while it would get up and go walk on somebody. And I remember the last client of that day. It was a young man who came in with shin splints. And he came in, and the hawk got very excited and came in and looked at the shin splints, flew away. I didn't follow it. I didn't follow consciously where it went, but it came back, and it had in its talons branches from a tree with white flowers on it. And it began to pull the flowers off the branches and chew on them. And then it would regurgitate this white liquid on top of the bones, and kind of like making a plaster on them. Shin splints are like tiny little not breaks, but tiny little cuts in the bone from too much exercise. The muscles pulling on the bones. And so I was fascinated with this, because it was kind of like metallic as it went on, and then it dried. And so I then put Reiki on it, etc. And he went home, and I then researched. Oh, then I actually, the next time, for the next leg, I actually put my consciousness with the bird and saw which tree it went to, and then saw it come back, and it did the same thing for the second leg. And I remember looking up later anything with shin splints and white flowers, and I found out that there's an actual Chinese remedy for shin splints, which is called white flower oil. And I had no idea what that was before this bird had come in. Later on, when I was done with my clients, it flew off, and I haven't seen it since. So that was kind of interesting. Another interesting paranormal thing that happened during my work at the synagogue was there was a funeral that I did one time at the synagogue. It was a very large funeral, and I was up on the raised platform, which is called the bima, and I was sitting there, and I was looking at the casket, and it was buzzing. It was like it wasn't clear in my 3D eyes. It was not clear. It was like it was vibrating. And I looked at the rabbi. He's fine. It's nice and clear, 20/20 vision on him. I look at the casket, and it's out of focus. I look back at the rabbi. He's fine. Casket's out of focus. So I'm thinking, something's going on here. I don't know what it is. So about a week later, I'm sitting up. This is the summertime. We have our windows open. My husband's asleep. I'm sitting up reading, and I notice out of the corner of my eye, this orb comes through the window. It comes in, and it lodges itself in my heart chakra. And as an energy person, you don't want anybody in your chakras. You just don't. That's a no-no. And so I said, okay, you have 10 seconds to get out before I take you out. So you need to go. But I could feel through my throat chakra, which is a communication chakra, that it wanted to tell me something. It wanted to give me a message. And so I said to it, I said, look, you've got to go. I don't know who you are. And I don't know if you're good or bad, leave. And so finally, I felt it was reluctantly, it left. The next day I saw a friend of mine who was a medium, and we had lunch, and I told her about what happened, and she looked at me and she said, oh, that's the person you buried last week. They were coming back to ask you to give a message to their spouse. I said, can they come back? They want to know if they could come back and talk to you. I said, well, how do they know that I would be, receptive to something like this? And my friend said, oh, that's because they can see that you're open. And so the next night they came back and I was ready. I had a notebook with a pen, and I was going to be able to talk with this thing. And they just wanted to leave a message that they loved their spouse to the moon and back, and that they were sorry they had left so soon. It was not of their choosing. It was a very quick death, unfortunately. And would I bring this message to the spouse? And so I did as best I could without getting fired from my job. But that was that happened a couple of times where dead congregants would come and see me. So as going back to my work with Dr. Wu, I learned all about energy things and how to work with energy and in the body. And I found that I could actually feel where things in the body needed to have work done on them. And so just want to something here. And another time that I had paranormal issue was in my own house. We were remodeling our kitchen, and so we were going to go all the way down to the beams, etc., in our kitchen. And so I just got this crazy idea that I should probably warn the spirits in my kitchen that this was going to happen, because and so I announced to the kitchen spirits that we were going to be doing some renovations in this kitchen, that it was going to be going on for a couple of weeks, and then they would have a beautiful new kitchen with which to play in. And so every couple of days I would remind them, look how it's going. You're going to have your kitchen back really soon. And so finally, when it was done, I went into the kitchen and I said, look, it's all done. And I took pictures. And as I was taking pictures, I saw 3 orbs wrapped in blue, and they were dancing around my kitchen and jumping off of the new island and the new granite, etc., all over the place. I was so dumbfounded that I couldn't get them in a picture, but one of them jumped off of the island onto the floor and then into my heart chakra. And it was as if it was a thank you for doing what, warning them. So that was kind of another interesting thing that happened at that time. So as I continued to work with Dr. Wu, I began my own practice in his office first, and then on my own. And it's always been pretty easy since going through this this whole paranormal thing. It's always been pretty easy to feel energy, and the way that I actually feel energy is sometimes I feel things are off, and sometimes I see that things are off. Um, it's very just interesting how that works, and it doesn't happen to everybody. It's just some people need outside help more than others. Sometimes when I work on somebody, I have visions of animals coming in and helping out with how things are. Other times it's feeling where things are off. It was interesting. My husband and I had gone to Florida to visit some of his relatives. We were having breakfast with them one time, and they were asking how I was doing, and that they'd heard that I had a new wellness business. And so I said, before I could even think, it came out of my mouth, well, sometimes I can see what's wrong with people. And she goes, oh, well, what's going on with me? And I said, oh, you've got this. Before I could even think, it was like Spirit was speaking through me and said, well, you've got something going on in your back, like right up in the back of here. And she goes, that's amazing. How did you know that? I said, and that's just how I am. And she said, and then what's going on with my husband? I said, he's got some metal in his back. I just threw that out. He's got some metal in his back, and he's had some really bad back pain. And she was like, well, that's interesting, because he just had an operation a few months ago, and he does have metal in his back, and one of the screws are loose. And so he's having extra pain. So when this same cousin came to visit us, she brought her sister and her brother-in-law. And as we were having dinner, she told them that that I could do some of these things. And so she said, okay, tell me what's going on with her brother-in-law. And I said, you know, I feel something in my jaw right over in here. It's really painful, and it's almost like I can't open my jaw. And she said, well, that's interesting, because when he was in high school, he got he had some sports injury where they had to wire his jaw shut, and it still bothers him to this day. So it's been an interesting ride between the work that I do, which is kind of interesting, and the everything else, the paranormal, etc. There's never a dull day. You know, it's wonderful. Tina, how much more time do we have before we should be taking questions?
You're still good if you have more to share.
Okay, would you like to hear a few more of the paranormal stories that I have here? Okay. There was kind of an interesting. I have several Qigong students that I've worked with over the years, and one of them came to me one time and said, you know, my back's been bothering me for a while. You know, maybe a little Tui Na or acupressure healing would help. And so I was doing a scan of the body as I was taught by Dr. Wu, and as I got to her lower back, I could see that there was a bone there with a crack in it. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I can't work on your back. You've got to go to the doctor and have some x-rays done. I disclaimer, always see your doctor, always get diagnosed by your doctor. I don't diagnose. I just find out where energy disruptions are, but I could see in my head that what appeared to me as a crack. I said, I'm seeing a crack in your bone, but please go get it looked at, and please go to your doctor. And so she went to her doctor. She had an x-ray done, and she called me a few days later and she said, you know what? I do have a crack in my bone that I never knew that I had. There are apparently these little bones near the vertebrae that are kind of like knit together. And there's a specific name for it, but not being a doctor, I don't know the name for it. And there was a crack in those that possibly could have happened since she was a young child. Sometimes that's what happens, but it's very interesting. So I would not press down on her back. I did other things with her that day. You have to be very careful when working on backs. I remember having one client one time who came to me, who was a little bit depressed. And so, but the night before our appointment, I kept hearing this giggling in my head, like little girls giggling, like at a party, like giggling. I said, okay, who's here? And they said, we're here for so-and-so. And I said, well, I'm not seeing so-and-so until tomorrow. Come back tomorrow. What's tomorrow? They don't, spirit has no idea what time is. There's no time. We have time here in our virtual world here on our physical plane, but on their plane, there's no time. So I said, come back tomorrow. It's not now. And so tomorrow morning I wake up, I'm hearing the giggling in my head again. So I said, okay, we'll go in a minute. So I go and I get to the office and I start working on this person, and I'm hearing the giggling. And then I start seeing, I always have my eyes closed when I'm working on people. I see these beautiful little girls, and they're dressed in these little like Holly Hobby dresses, with big beautiful satin ribbons around the chest area, and in a nice bow, and their faces are light. I can't see their faces. Their faces are light, and they've got beautiful, hair and a garland of flowers around all of their heads. They're in a field of wheat, and they were holding hands, and they're laughing, and they're playing. They're playing. They're playing so that they're making themselves dizzy. They're falling down. They're coming in front of my third eye, and they're throwing up pieces of wheat, and then laughing and running back, and they're doing circles where they all fall down. And so I asked them. I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And they said, "We're here for so and so." I said, "Well, is there a message you'd like to give to so and so?" And they said, just tell her that everything is going to be okay, and to have fun. And as they said, fun, they're throwing up the wheat. Just tell her to have fun. And that to find the joy in life, that there's joy. And so I gave the message, and this person was not born in the United States. And so I asked her if she'd ever seen these kinds of spirits before. And she said, well, it sounded like her native field sprites. And so I described them to her, and she said that's what she thought they were. And so, but what a beautiful message of joy that these little girls danced around like they had no care in the world. And that was the message. Just don't have a care in the world. Just don't be down on yourself. And so this person had come to me before, and a goddess had appeared when they came in. And it was interesting that she was the goddess Athena, and it turned out that the woman actually had a tattoo of the goddess Athena on her body. So it was kind of interesting, and I didn't even know that, but there were all kinds of different things. So So life has a way of throwing wrenches in your life and then making it better. It's such a learning experience to all of a sudden go from not feeling energy to feeling that everything is energy. And my whole feeling about God is that God is in everything. God is everything, and and God is the energy that binds us together. God is like the great web that brings us all together. And I I can't tell you how enriched my life has felt since feeling energy and now working, doing energy work on people. It's a new experience every day. And in a way, even though I have not had a near-death experience like many of you, I had a death in a way, a conceptual death, in the sense that my whole way of life, as I knew it, died, and I was rebirthed into something else, which was which was very interesting to me. So, does anybody have any questions?
Who wants to ask a question first?
Okay. I have a question. When you refer to God, how do you visualize God?
You can't. For me,
Sorry, say that again.
I can't visualize God, because God is essence. God's everything. I don't visualize God. I feel God. Just like I feel everything. I don't actually like see like all the orbs and stuff that I used to see, and I don't get attacked by things anymore. I mostly feel things now. My whole feeling about God is that God is the we are not we that we ourselves are God. We are all beings of God. Is within us. God is without us. God is us, because we have all of this God energy running through our bodies all the time. We're made of the same things that God is. That's my new definition of God. And
Okay.
I don't, in other words, I don't see God as being the old guy up in the clouds with the white beard.
Yes, but when you speak about God, it's as if there is some kind of a personification, and yet you do say that God is everything, and it creates confusion.
Mm. So, all right. So,
Felt that
we're humans, right? We are humans. So I think that we as humans tend to sometimes anthropomorphize God.
what does that mean?
We tend to make God into a form that our human brains can understand. So, like, God looks like a person. God looks like a person. God looks like that's what I mean by anthropomorphize.
Okay, so but you've not had any sense of messages from God, but from your spirits. Is that it?
Yeah, because I feel that, I feel like when I had that light, intense light in my room that night, I felt like that was a visit from God, in the sense that I had my eyes tightly closed and I couldn't have opened them if I wanted to. I almost felt at the time like Moses was when he was put in the cleft of the rock as God went by, he couldn't see God, or else he couldn't live. Does that make sense to you? That kind of thing. So it's always a difficult question when, you know, when we try to define God, because I think God is different for all of us, and I think God shows itself differently to everybody.
Okay. So when you say God is everything, I'm trying to wrap my mind around that. God is everything.
Well, in the Torah, when God says his name, he says, in Hebrew, he says, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. Ehyeh means I shall be that which I shall be. And so, and in Hebrew, God's name is written in Hebrew letters that are the makeup for the verb in Hebrew to be. Yodhe Vav is a derivative of the verb to be in Hebrew. So God just is. God just is.
Okay.
And there have been some philosophers throughout the ages who have said that if you try to describe God, you limit God. When you say God is this, God is that, you limit God. You can't put God in a box.
Okay. That's good. All right. May I ask a question about the Jewish religion?
Sure.
Um,
Ken Alter probably would be someone better to. Hi, Ken. How are you? Ken also, I met him fairly early on in my opening to energy. And I must say that Spirit did lead me to talk to Ken, as he was another fellow clergy member who had experienced something beyond this world. So I'm ever grateful to Ken for all of the information and help that he gave me along the way. So,
okay. So, all right. So I have questions to both you and Ken. If Ken, I understand Ken is here. There seems to be a belief that there is no afterlife in the Jewish religion. And I get this impression from my Jewish friends whenever I bring up the subject of near-death experience and, afterlife, etc. It's like a shade comes down and they don't want to really talk about it. And it sort of ends the discussion. So I've never gotten a definitive answer from my Jewish friends. Do you believe in life after death?
That's a good question, Jack. I think we lost Ken. He'll probably try to come back here. That's a really good question. Now, the couple of times that they have talked about the afterlife in the Torah, it's a place known as Sheol, which is it's really just, in Hebrew, it just means like the pit. And it's not a place with a good reputation, a bad reputation. It's just a place where you go when you die. That is, it's a place of rest, and it's not like the traditional Christian one of, well, you go to heaven and you go to the pearly gates, etc. So, like, I believe that Saul in the prophets asks for help from Samuel, the dead prophet Samuel, and Samuel comes back from Sheol to give him advice, and it's just not a There's not the emphasis on the afterlife. So, Ken, they were asking a question about the afterlife. You might know more about what the Talmud says about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got knocked off. Yeah, in answer to the question, there's nothing in our scripture in the Bible that talks about the afterlife, but it is discussed among the sages that write about it, Maimonides and others in the Talmud too. They reference it, but you can't find anything in our Bible or prophets or writings that's going to talk about it. So therefore, it's up to what you believe. I believe, of course, that there is an afterlife. And, if you study the Kabbalah, if you study the writings, which I'm giving a class, right, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, and you study what the main Kabbalistic teachers teach us, they talk a lot about the afterlife. But if you're not looking at the Kabbalistic texts, there really isn't much that is written about it. So it's up to you to figure out what you believe in. So if you ask traditional Jews, they're not going to really be able to answer the question that study the usual Jewish text. They're not going to really talk about it. What the answer will be, Donna, what other people will say is that the most important thing is not to concentrate on the afterlife, but concentrate on this life, on what be here now. What are you doing now? Don't worry about it so much. Can you be the best person you can do now and be now? So that's the emphasis on the now. And then the other thing, afterlife will take care of itself. So that's my answer. I hope, Donna, do you agree with me on that?
Absolutely. I just pointed out that there was, the reference to Sheol,
right,
which is basically, it's not a place of anything. It's just a place of rest. It's the pit, and
Okay.
it's not necessarily a place of good. It's not necessarily bad. There's no hell. Only the hell that you create here.
right. And I would
Okay. So
that it's like a purification for the soul, which I've talked about at this group before, that you go to a place where you have to purify your soul. So in order to bond with the light of the God, whatever, or other entities, you have to purify your soul. So it's like a spiritual car wash that you go through, and you have to get a refinement of your soul before you can ascend. So I'm going to just add that to the discussion.
okay. So you like my friends have sidestepped the answer. You say, don't think about the afterlife. Just take care of your living, okay? But you don't really answer the question. And so, do you believe in? Does the Jewish religion believe in the soul, that we have a soul which survives our body?
I think so.
Yes, yeah, the Kabbalists and do believe, and I mostly study with Kabbalists, and they all do believe that the soul goes on, and there's a part of it that goes up to heaven. According to the Ari, also the great teacher, there's a part of it that goes to heaven. There's a part that comes back that has to be reincarnated to make up for some things that we didn't get through in this life. So it gets complicated, but there is eventually, after the soul goes back to heaven, there is a concept called the Tchiyat HaMetim, when the resurrection of the dead, and that'll lead into the Messianic era. So there's a concept that goes with it called the resurrection of the dead. It's very hard to understand, but everyone will have a chance again at that point to be reunited with their body.
Right.
Okay.
You have a good neshama. It's a good soul.
Could I
Well,
talk to Donna? Can I tell
I'm-
Donna?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Donna, I'm from the Boston area, and
Sure.
I'm of the Jewish faith.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't too strong in my religion, but when I found the IANDS group many years ago, I became a believer of the afterlife after hearing from so many NDEers.
Right.
And then when my mother passed away, I sought out for the very first time a medium. I don't know if you're familiar with Reverend Rita Berkowitz from the Boston area.
No.
She was from New York, and then she came to the Boston area and became the Reverend at the Quincy Spiritualist Church, which is, Quincy is a little south of the city
Right.
of Boston. And she did a reading for me. And let me tell you, that reading just verified in my being that there is an afterlife. Because everything she detailed and told me about my mother, I knew she reached my mother, and she did not know me. So this was fabulous. I mean, I felt so great after having that reading. I was so thankful. Then for the second time in my life, when I went to a medium after my grandson, who was 24 years old and passed away, I wanted her to do another reading, but she stopped doing the reading. She was getting older and it just took too much energy out of her. So I found somebody else, not recommended, and I lucked out again, and she reached my grandson. Now, a sister of mine, a beloved sister of mine, passed away in August. And I am going to go to another medium because I do believe that if you are open to it and the person they're reaching wants to be open to it, you will have a good experience. And I'm going to wait a little while longer. I think it's too soon to go. She just passed away in August. It takes about a year to really get a good reading. And I want to tell you, you are very gifted. You are so gifted, and I'm so thankful you told your story tonight, because people have to be enlightened, especially the Jewish faith. I feel that they should accept more that there is an afterlife. Of course, you got these older people. Now, I happen to be a senior, but I've accepted it because I've always had an open mind about religion. And
Well, you know, what's very interesting is that I do believe that you know, I don't. One of the things that this journey has taught me is that, and one of the things that I felt was that my spirituality grew, so that I felt like it expanded from what I was taught as a Jewish clergy, and what I had learned, and I felt like it could not be contained in just the same dogma that I had been taught, and that it had expanded from there, and that my idea of God could not be confined within four walls of a synagogue. I could talk to God anytime of any day. But I'm one of those people, Lonnie, who absolutely feel that there is an afterlife. And it's not necessarily the afterlife that people normally think of as, you know, going to the pearly gates, etc. I just think we go back to our source. Our souls go back to wherever they came from, wherever before we were born or reincarnated. I'm sure this is not my first time on this planet. I'm sure I've had many incarnations on this planet, and each time I learn something new or expand, etc. And so I'm one of these people now, knowing energy the way I do, that I definitely believe that there is a lot out there. I've spoken to congregants who have passed. I have spoken with my ancestors who have passed. So I definitely hear you, and I'm one of those Jewish people who definitely feels that there is some kind of an afterlife for the soul. The souls never die. All that, I think Einstein was the person who said that matter never dies. It gets transformed. And so, like, when we die, our soul leaves the body, goes back to source, and our bodies decay into minerals and things to the earth that can be then made into new things. So it's all matter can neither be created nor destroyed. That's basically it.
And Donna, I was fascinated
Okay,
to
so
hear that you are also somewhat of a medical intuitive. where you were able to do some diagnosis.
Well, I don't do diagnosis.
Well, you-
I just know where there are energy,
Feel-
different disturbances in the field, so to speak.
Well, somewhat of a diagnosis when you're doing your Reiki. Now, when you mentioned that you were working on somebody and you knew what their particular problem was, she asked about her husband, and her husband wasn't present, and you were able to tell her something about her husband. I felt that was fascinating.
Which one was this?
One of the stories you told about one of the people that you're working on with Reiki, and she asked you about her husband's medical situation, and you were able to give her some information.
Oh, this was just a relative. This was a relative.
A relative.
Yeah, it was a relative. I wasn't working on them. I was just sitting at the table, and
Okay. All right, then I was a little confused.
yeah, and she just kind of put me on the spot and said, well, you know, what's going on with him? And I had a vision at the moment. It's always a quick vision, and it's like a hand is pointing to the person's face. Sometimes I feel what's going on with him, and sometimes I just see what's going on with him.
Well, that's fascinating. I think that's a wonderful gift that you have. Do you do readings?
I don't even know how I would put this into a reading. Sometimes when I'm talking or texting with somebody, I get a feeling of what's going on, like my knee will hurt, or I get like a hand on a knee, or I feel a tightness in my leg, or a headache or something, or sometimes I can't breathe, and so I know the person's having breathing issues. And so I don't know. Sometimes I see things, sometimes I don't. Depends on how open the person is too.
Do you feel that you lose some energy having these visions? Do you
No.
No, you're still energized even though you're able
yeah.
to do this?
Yeah, because I feel sometimes I feel that spirit is with me. Whatever guide
I was just
is
thinking
with.
I was thinking about Edgar Cayce and how
Oh,
he did so many readings that it really took away his life because he was just exhausted from all the readings he did. It really zapped all his energy. Yeah.
well, I wouldn't put myself in that space. Like, I do not. I work on my business is really just for to help people, but I don't go 40 hours a week. I do maybe 3 or 4 people a week if I want. I don't work on more than one person a day, just because it can be exhausting. But you have to learn as an energy person not to share your energy with others, and you have to learn how to protect yourself.
Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question. So my understanding is that you believe in reincarnation. Is that part of the Jewish religion? That
I don't think it's a formal.
reincarnation?
I don't think it's a formal part. I just personally believe in it.
So do I.
And Ken?
Yeah.
What about you? What about reincarnation? Is that part of the Jewish religion?
There's a book that I have written by the great sage Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, which many people study, and one of the books is called Shar HaGilgulim. It's called the book about reincarnation. It goes over reincarnation all the way up through his time, which is in about 300 years ago. But I believe in it. I know that people, from what I can pick up, like Donna, I know people. I've been here many times. I once had some work on me done, and I've been here many times, and I've always had to learn something. So even in the Jewish tradition, if you turn to the mystical view, everyone there does believe in reincarnation. Yes. Mainstream, no.
Right.
Okay, but
Laurie has a question. Laurie, she raised her hand. Laurie?
Hi.
Laurie,
First, I want to ask if you can hear me okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Donna, thank you very much for sharing your experience. It is an incredible experience. And I am new to receiving messages and energy. I had a brief NDE, as I mentioned in the last meeting, and I had a recent energy experience who I believe was Dr. Peebles. I don't know if people are familiar with him, but he was a doctor who did 100 years and has been able to said he would communicate with people, and this was because I was trying to help a friend. The friend had communication with Dr. Peebles previously, and Dr. Peebles came to me physically into my body and lit my body up with vibration and light and everything. But I did want to thank you for sharing all of your experiences. Um, as you first started to talk, one of my senses of feeling things when they're the truth or they're spiritually given is I get goosebumps. And as you started to talk and said you knew that when you were about to step through that door that your life would be forever changed, my whole body got goosebumps. It is now. So this is to me is you're telling the truth, and truly your life has been changed. Um, and you talked about how you were being attacked. And I'm being new to this, I'm nervous and I'm fearful about letting energies communicate with me. And I have done some things that Tina has mentioned as far as protection. And I've also made it clear that I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see orbs. I don't want to see spirits, but I'm willing to feel it. And so, what you described in your journey is a lot of learning. And for me, this is all brand new. This only happened to me starting in 2017. I had the near death experience. I had the voice come in my head saying, turn around, look up. I realized that I was in a very toxic environment, a mold. And then I heard, now get out. And that voice was very calm, just as though someone were talking to me, because I talked to it out loud. I said, okay, what am I looking at? So, in being open to these things, there's a little bit of a fear when you mentioned that the demon attacked you going up the stairs. I have a great fear of opening this door that has sort of been opened for me without me wanting it to be opened. And being learning the protective ways, as you said, like you encased your house in the mirrors and you felt something happen after that. I mean, I need to learn more before I will allow myself to be open to anything. And the other thing is, you have chosen as your purpose from being made aware of all this as a psychic, as a to be in healing through healing modalities, helping others, which it sounds as though you've been very successful and have helped many people in their journeys. And I went and saw Tina, and she felt something on the right side of me. And there isn't any medical issue there, but that's where Dr. Peebles came in. So it's I felt when Tina did the Tibetan healing bowl, something leave my side on that side. When Dr. Peebles came in, he came in through that side. So it's almost like I can feel this area in my lower right stomach is an opening of some sorts. And this, like I said, again, is all new to me. Um, so your story, just the experiences that you've had and the things that you've seen, I'm just wondering, did I know you said that it impacted you a lot psychologically in the beginning, which is kind of where I'm at, where I'm not too sure how much I want to, how much further I want to open this door, but I feel like there's an urging to do it as well. So, how did you, as you came through this experience, psychologically, was there just an acceptance of it? So, if you could talk a little bit about the psychological experience you've gone through and how you feel about it now.
Well, I mean, when you first open up and you feel that you're having all of these, paranormal experiences that you've never had before, I mean, you begin to wonder, is this all in my head because of what this psychic had told me, or is this real? So I had to first of all find out whether it was real or not, and I ultimately found out that it was real, that these things were happening to me, and that I better learn how to handle it. And so I decided ultimately that, you know, I would use different types of psychic protection, and I would also not be a victim. Because what you find in energy is that your intention is everything. And one of the rules of the energetic universe is that energy follows intention. So, and it's kind of like true in your life. Whatever, if you think you're bad all the time, you're going to be bad. If you think that you're good, you're going to be great. It's an intention type thing. You have to be strong. You have to have no doubts. And also there are certain laws that spirits have to follow as well. If you don't want them around, you tell them. And before you interact with any spirit, I would caution you to say to them, are you of the light, for the light, and by the light? If they cannot answer yes, goodbye. Tell them goodbye.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that helps. I've been very clear that I don't want any negative energy coming within my realm at all. So I've been very clear to that. And once again, I've been talking with Tina a little bit, making sure that the intention that if I receive a message, that it's only for positive, for good energy that might be allowed to come through me. So thank you.
Yeah, I kind of decided early on, because I was having, you know, spirits come to visit me, and, you know, they would, I just decided that mediumship probably wasn't something that I was 100% interested in, that I was really more interested in working with healing energies better. And that turned out to be what I ended up ultimately doing. I probably could have been a medium if I had put more interest in it and if I had put more practice into it. But it's just really not something that I'm as interested in.
Okay, Donna, may I ask a question?
Sure.
When you say you ask these questions about the light, well, what's to keep them from lying and saying yes? I mean,
Can't lie.
I'm sorry?
They can't lie,
Why can't they lie?
because they can't. It's just an energetic. It's a law. They have a lot of trouble. They can't. You have to say, "Do you love me?" They can't. They can't. If they can't say they love you, then they've got to go.
Oh, who controls this requirement that they can't lie?
From what I understand, it's a universal
Law.
it's a universal law.
Who made
Tina, am I correct on that?
who made the law?
So.
What?
I feel that it is a law, a spiritual law.
Well, who makes these spiritual laws?
I'm thinking it's the maker of creation. They all have to abide by it. That's all that I've been taught. That's all I can tell you.
Donna, have you recognized any of the entities that come to you? Have you learned later who they were? Like this one energy that came to me, I didn't know right away who it was until like a week later when this person sent me a recording of a medium session. And then I said, oh, that was who came to me. That was absolutely who came to me. Have you been able to identify or recognize any of these entities or beings or orbs or things that you see? Have you been able to recognize who it is?
Well, the one with the buzzing casket, I did not know them in life. They were not a congregant that came to temple often, so I really didn't I did not have, I did not know who they were. So I wouldn't have recognized them in spirit either. I recognized them the second night because the medium had told me who they were. And I confirmed it with them when they revisited me the second night. And there have been a couple of others that have come to me who I know who they are. But before that, I didn't know exactly who was playing around.
Thank you.
Donna, I just want to thank you very much for all the input that you've given us. And a friend of mine that the minister, Episcopalian, he has Jewish background. I was just overwhelmed that he had said that Jewish religion is the parents to us. And like what you had said about going beyond the dogma and to see more and what it is. And my compassion for everybody is that we all have different perceptions, but in my experience, if I do baby steps and if I explore and I question, why am I feeling great? What's going on here? And then even whatever it is, to expand on it and to be open. But even now, I find that the things that I'm familiar with, that I find realization that I block myself up in different ways because I'm comfortable for things that I'm familiar with. But in the baby steps, I look at things and do some changes and see habits and see things that are better and apply it. And so I just overwhelmingly appreciate all that you were so open to be able to pour out your heart to us. I want to just thank you very much.
You're welcome. It just take things slow, Lou. Take things slow and have no doubts.
That's right.
Spirit can't mess with you if they prey on fear. Prey on fear, and if you're fearful, they'll play with you. So just let them know that your intention is that you have no fear. If you're not an easy target, they'll go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, and my perception of even looking at fear, if I look at it and I see what it is, it was my perception that I created some of the fears and get to understand it and see the wisdom in it. And I says, wow. And I have to do baby steps because I'm applying that into working at it. And then that was only the beginning because then I see other people differently and I see the compassion and feel inside them. And they're not telling me. And I look at them, but because I'm taking some time with myself, helps me to be so feeling for others. And then another baby step would be to how can I help someone and not be coarse and be subtle. And so I'm still working on it. And I'm enjoying the excitement of the process. So thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
I want to ask Donna, how long after you saw the psychic reading before you saw the energy?
Oh, I would say it was a good 2 to 3 weeks. And then all hell broke loose in my house. Yeah. That was it was quite a very fast, rude awakening. Yeah. I was not ready for this.
You were being
I had no idea what was coming down the pike at all. So I felt like a person with no armor. Yeah, I was a newbie, very much. Yeah, it was about 2 weeks. And, the only thing I can think of is that when my heart chakra was vibrating out of my body, so to speak. It felt like it was out to, out 3 feet in front of me and around me, surrounding me. It opened something, maybe a block, maybe something like that. I have no idea. And I don't know if there was something in my family that may have, that I have a lineage of some kind. I do know that my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a tea leaf reader. She could read tea leaves and tell people what was going on. And from what I understand, I believe she told me this herself, she was reading tea leaves one day and she saw a very bad accident. And it turned out to be her best friend's brother was in a very bad car accident. And from what she told me, I don't think she ever did it again. She never taught me how to do it or anything like that. But there may be something familial in my mother's line. Not positive, but it could be something like that going on too, that was just kind of like awakened. Let's just say that. Because before that, I don't ever remember concentrating on anything. I always believed in God. I always believed in angels. But it was the classic Christian and then Jewish frame of.
How did the Qigong help you?
Oh, Qigong. I love Qigong. Qigong helps you to be more sensitive to energy in and around you. It also helps build the Qi, the energy within your body as well, and to open up all of the meridians. It's Qigong Tai Chi. I love it. And it also trains your mind. And there's also a saying that if you can see through a wall as you're practicing your Qigong, don't even worry about it. Or if you start seeing spirits or anything, don't even think about it. It's non-attachment. You have to practice non-attachment.
Yeah, I have friends in China. They are practicing Qigong to bend spoons.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've also taught Tai Chi, classic yang form, and I prefer Qigong better. I like it as a much more personal practice. It's what it does is it really opens up the meridians, which can then, from what I understand, can then open up your psychic abilities, because then you can really begin to feel things going on in your own body. If you learn to know what's going on in your own body, you go within, and you can tell at any moment. Sometimes it's a double-edged sword, because I'm so in tune with my body. I know when my gallbladder meridian is off the charts, and I have to start pressing points to get it back into order. And once I start pressing a point, all of a sudden another one will say, okay, me, now me. So I have to start going around the meridian clock, and start working on things. So it's a great practice. If anybody can ever do it, it's really gentle. It's great for your body, great for your soul. It's just combining mind, body, and spirit.
How long do you have to practice to be good at it?
It's definitely a practice. Usually you should be practicing, from what I understand from Dr. Wu, most practices, you got to try it at least for 100 days. Everything is for 100 days. You got to try 100 days. Then it becomes a habit. So I've been doing Qigong for about 10 years now, and I learn something new about it each time I do it. I feel something different each time I do it, and I learn something different. I learned something different about my health, about the way I stand, the movement of my hand or my arm or whatever. It's a never-ending learning. So I feel like I can't say that I'm really good at it. I'm proficient, but I would not call myself a master.
And it's good to go ahead and do everything else in the same way. In the process, everything takes time, and it's a process of change. And every time it's different, and you see things differently, and you're able to do things. And that got to do with everything: cooking, walking, everything, breathing. And it's amazing. And that's so excited about the whole universe.
Right. And to answer Sue again, it's where your mind is. Can you clear your mind enough to feel that subtle difference in from what you did last time you did it to what you're doing now? I mean, some days it's not that great because maybe I have too much on my mind, so I'm not really feeling what I'm doing. But other times it's incredibly profound. So it's different experience each time. So I feel like I'm taking up something new each time I do it. That's the only way I can answer that.
Donna, I wanted to go back to something that you had said that you thought that it was in your lineage.
Might be.
Yeah, okay. First of all, my understanding is that we all write contracts before we come on the earth, as far as what it is that we are supposed to be doing at certain stages of our lives. Okay. And then the other thing I want to share is that I have 2 daughters and they each have 2 daughters. 2 of my granddaughters, the first one from each of the daughters has my gift. So I'm encouraging them to talk to Mimi. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's wonderful. See, my mother just told me that she just kind of knows things, but she's never like done anything. But she did say that her mother would see things every once in a while. But I don't know of any other part of the family that knows anything. So
Okay, very good.
Lori, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, just a couple of thoughts as well. My mother had a near-death experience when she was a young child. She had a very high fever. She saw her grandfather come to the front door, and my grandmother told him that they didn't need him and that he could go away. And she asked my mother, did he go away? And she said, yes. Little later on in life, my mother was always very intuitive and could foresee some things happening. She had my stepfather not go to work one night. She pleaded with him not to go to work. And the other worker that did go was shot and killed that night. So she had an interesting feeling about a lot of things. If we went to play a game at the casino, she could touch your shoulder and tell you if you were going to win or not. Different things like that. So I don't know if it's in my lineage either. But another thought was, when the voice came into my head, like you had the voice come into your head a number of times, when it came into my head in my home and said those 3 things to me, they were very short, and it was almost like something my mother could have said. When I went to when I was young, she would say, turn around and look up, to put my hair up in a ponytail. So when I was very sick and dying in my home, I heard turn around, look up, almost as though it could have been my mother talking, but I didn't recognize the voice. But I was still curious who said this to me, who saved my life. And I went to a medium and she said it was the angel of death. And I said, well, that could very possibly be true too. So I'm still curious as to who put those words in my head as though it were a conversation. Um, and the other thing was, for a while, I felt as though I had 1 foot here on this earth and 1 foot not here. I was close to dying for a few months. I could feel my soul trying to leave my body. I would tell my husband that I felt light. My legs were light, and like I had no feelings in my legs. I could still use them, but my soul was trying to leave my body from my legs up. And 2 things happened to me. I was raised Catholic and I believed in God and I sang the songs like you. And then when I was a teenager, I turned away. And this point in my life was not until I was about 54 or so when this happened. And I had two things happen to me, three things that were kind of interesting. One was one day I felt like the biggest sinner on the face of the earth, and I prayed and pleaded for forgiveness for everything I had ever done wrong that I could ever remember. And there was just this one day where I felt totally like a sinner. A few days later, I had the fear of God put in me, a complete and utter fear of God. I have no description of what God looks like to me, like you. There is no description. It was just a complete and utter fear that of the Creator. And the Bible talks a lot about having fear of God. I felt it, and I couldn't shake it. My husband said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I have the fear of God in me, and I can't shake it. And it's right here." And that feeling subsided. But also, when I was sick and not feeling well, we talked about reincarnation a little bit tonight. I was pleading with God, don't make me come back here. Don't make me come back here. So finally, as I started to get a little better, one of my last episodes where I felt like my soul was trying to leave my body, I got my phone out to call 911. And then I said, no, I was walking on a trail and I knew my soul was leaving my body. And I said, no, I'm not going to call 911. And I looked up and I said, if you want me, take me now. But also, after that feeling subsided, and that was the last time I felt it, I was praying and talking to God as I walk along this trail. And I decided that the other thing we talked about in the conversation, the positive end of it, be here fully while you're here. So now I was almost killed by mold in my home. This month, a congressman in Connecticut is introducing a mold law in schools for me. I have a mold ministry, as Howard Storm calls it, if you're familiar with him. And you talked about that message, that one message of the joy in life. I became so serious and so negative. If the poisons of the mold affected my brain so that there was only negativity and darkness. And now that I can see and feel the light again, I've got to remind myself, and Tina's very good at reminding us to just have fun in life. Because while we're here, feel what you're feeling here, love the people with you're with, as Howard Storm says, and just try to have some fun in life. And that's becoming more difficult to come by. And that's another reason that I love these meetings in this group, is because I do feel the love and the positive energy and the good vibrations. And thank you again for sharing your story.
So Lori, think about those little girls, those little field sprites. Feel and how just absolutely how joyous they are. They're fun. They're having fun. They don't care if they're knocking, if they're down. They don't care if they're blindfolding another one and spinning them around and spinning them around and spinning them around until they get dizzy and fall. It was just just have joy.
Thank you.
Find the joy in life. It's there.
Yeah.
It's definitely there. Are there any more questions?
Well, thank you very much, Donna. It was a great
Jack.
session. I had a
Jack,
Thank you
So we
so
have-
much.
okay.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
and Jack, before we close, can you remind everybody we got a new Twitter account? People can follow us on Twitter. It's NDE CT.
Okay.
And also Donna's website and information is going to be posted on our website as well. Thank you, Donna. Great job. Thank you very much.
Stay safe. Well, goodbye.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yay. Well.